I can have a cool guy title too.
Look,
Hey,
I can,
welcome back to DEStalks. I am Chase. I'm joined today with Rob. We are going to break away from a usual not broadcasted, but regular scheduled programming. Is that how you would put that, Rob?
I would say you and I had a topic that we wanted to discuss today, but we started having conversations and finally going to just do what we always talk about doing and hit the record button before we ideate all over the place and try and come up with something perfect and buttoned up. Let's just have a conversation, man. So what's our conversation for the day?
Well, we started talking about predatory behavior,
Yep.
right? We were going through veterans news and we were alarmed that there is information out there about transitioning veterans that is not well cited.
Yep.
It gave some, in you and I's opinion, some really bad insight, some really
Mm-hmm.
bad information, and we felt like it was very frustrating through reading through that article together was that we felt like that was predatory behavior that could be considered predatory behavior if you've never transitioned. It seemed
Yep.
like a person that had never been through a transition was trying to tell veterans what their
Yeah.
their
It,
issues are going to be.
I mean, it looked like, and this came from a big media outlet who has something like 1.3 million followers, and the headline is like retiring from the military question mark, and then it gave the top three things, which are taxes, housing, and location, or something like that, and it was just
Something like that.
copy and paste from like big VA website. That's not helpful, man. Like anybody can access that information. It sounded, to your point, sounded like somebody who's never done it before, who looked at it from a purely almost almost an analytical standpoint instead of taking in the human element and the personal experience that is that transition from service. And then that got us off on a tangent about predatory behavior inside of veteran service organizations. And I really wanted to know, you queued it up by saying, you know what grinds my gears?
Yeah,
And I
I
said, I
did.
absolutely want to know what grinds your gears. And so I'm going to ask you the question now, Chase. What grinds your gears, man, whenever it comes to these veteran service organizations, specifically the for profit VSOs? What
Oh
grinds your
my
gears?
gosh. For profit VSOs drive me absolutely bonkers. I'm not saying that there's not good ones out there. Okay. There's so few and far between that I wouldn't know personally what that would look like. It just doesn't make sense to me. If anybody's offering to help you in your time of need and is looking for compensation in return from you directly, that should start throwing up some red flags. Okay. I'm not saying that, the old adage of you get what you pay for,
Mm-hmm.
might be true, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's enough good non for profit VSOs out there that could help you get where you need, but they're not the ones that are sometimes put in the front light. So the predatory behavior absolutely drives me crazy. If you are making profit off a veteran and the time of their need, transitioning is super hard. That's why a lot of you veterans, if you're listening to here, you've seen a lot of quote unquote transition services that are out there.
Yep. And there's a lot.
There's a lot. There's a lot. There's some that you could pay for. There's courses that you can go through that you could pay for. There's also not a lot of non for profits. Um, I think every veteran's separation is tailored, but there are enough commonalities that we can successfully, I think, say through analytics that there are some core common issues that veterans have. Housing absolutely being one of them.
Yeah, for sure.
I would agree with housing being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we obviously have a problem with veterans and housing. We come from a job to where are, if you come in single at 18 to 21 years old, generally speaking, you're going to live in the barracks, right? So
Yep.
your housing is taken care of, right? And then if you get married and you move out of the barracks, or you get to the point where you get enough rank where you have to move out, they give you what they call basic housing allowance, right? Which is, for a lot of veterans in their mind, that's already budgeted in, right?
Hmm.
So whenever you separate from service, I have seen a trend and read a lot of trends where that's hard to budget for veterans as they come out. That's hard to think about. It's hard to know how to obtain because they never had to obtain these things for themselves.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and that's just due to ignorance. That's not due to any type of intelligence, right? That has nothing to do with those types of things. It's just due to exposure. So I have a hard time whenever you are in a housing program and you offer, housing assistance to veterans, but on the backside you're tacking on a percentage, or their rent goes up a percentage to cover your cost. Like that veteran didn't, number one, that veteran might not have been able to afford that to begin with, but how would they have known if you were there with that predatory behavior, in my opinion? Plus, non-for-profits don't have as big of a budget. So,
Well, there's that, and I think if I can, real quick, just pulling out what you're saying. Uh, you and I've both have worked with VSOs personally and professionally to a degree. The one thing that really stuck out with me about a month and a half, 2 months ago, I had a veteran contact DES. I was fortunate enough to be the point of contact for this veteran. And after our conversation, the comment was made to me of, well, it sounds like you only serve a specific, or if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, you only cater to a specific type of veteran. And
interesting.
unpacking that a little bit more throughout the course of our conversation, I was letting this veteran know where our expertise lied inside of DES. But that really struck a chord with me. And I shared that with you almost immediately after the
You did.
conversation, Chase. I was like, golly, dude, that is not how I want to come across. That we're only looking for, or our audience is only for veterans that are trying to go in higher education or veterans that are looking for C-suite level positions. Absolutely not. No. You, if that's the aura that we have put out there into the universe, that is on us, and that's false. If anything,
Yep.
we're
We'll
trying
work
to,
on that.
and we're actively trying to, right? But doing like we're in a non-negative way, we're reaching back and trying to pull veterans, right? Because you and I, dude, we've had the low level jobs. We've been in low level housing environments, if you will.
Yeah.
And I'm
To
trying
to use your more colorful word, I
uh-huh.
would say potholes. We've hit those
Yeah,
potholes.
yeah. And so I'm trying to,
we've struggled.
right. We're reaching back. We're like, don't hit those. Don't run into that pothole. Don't get stuck there. I've been there. I know that suck.
This is how I
Let
got
me
out.
help you avoid that.
Yeah.
But you have some VSOs out there who they do. They only cater to, more affluent veterans or, highly educated veterans. They pigeonhole themselves inside of that. And so I know predatory behavior is one thing that's big on VA's list. Whenever DES went to be certified with Department of Veterans Affairs as an approved vendor, that's the number one thing inside of their application and their review process. Is there predatory behavior? Are we making promises that I see on Facebook ads of we can take you from guaranteed
Yeah.
0 to
Guaranteed.
100% on your disability? And so, of course, I look into that. And I know I've talked about this on another episode of DEStalks. This is how much it bothers me that I'm talking about it again. How in the
Yeah.
world can you guarantee me 100%
You can't.
without doing things that I have experienced personally? In my own VA, claims processes, you meet with some providers who are like, I'm trying to help you. Tell me your back hurts. And I'm like, my back doesn't hurt. That's
My
not why
back
I'm
doesn't
here.
hurt.
My back doesn't hurt. What are you trying to? Well, I'm trying to do what's best for you. Like, no, 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 no. I'm not playing that game. That
No.
right there is predatory behavior. You think you're doing the veterans a favor by getting them to the 100%, by saying whatever needs to be said, by writing down whatever needs to be written down to get them to 100%. But you're not helping them. You're
No.
trying to drive business to you. That's not right. That grinds my gears. I'm sorry.
That grinds my gears.
I asked you what grinded your gears. Grinded? Ground? Grinds. What grinds your gears, Chase? And I
Grown?
took over.
Grown my gears?
What's what's the correct tense in this scenario? But I agree with you though. There are a lot of VSOs that are out there that do have some predatory behavior whenever it comes to attracting, their clientele.
Right. It's the attraction process. It's the way that you're attracting these veterans. I mean, you might have a great service, and we understand that everybody's got to eat too, right?
Yep.
So, like, I'm not saying that you might be a for profit that's doing awesome things, right? And that's just part of the cost of doing business. Because I know that for most businesses that want to do business with the federal government, you have to be a for profit, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you're not a for profit, then you don't get to do business with the federal government. So you might be a for profit, institution that's doing good things, right? Like
Oh, for
that's not
sure.
what we're
Yeah.
talking about. What
No.
we're talking about is the directed, predatory behavior of guaranteeing something or promising something or you know advocating on your behalf. If you do that, if you give me 20%,
Ooh, yeah.
I'll get you, I can, I'll go after them for you. I'll get you
Mm-hmm.
100%, or I'll get you this. I can get you housing, or I can get you, but there again, I need to be careful because I bring up a headhunter, right? So if you're a headhunter, right, that is your vocation, that is your job. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
consider that to be predatory behavior because you are taking a want from a company, an employer, and you're trying to seek out and fulfill a service of trying to match employer with employee, right?
Yeah.
Like that's different,
Yes.
right? But if you're a lawyer who is guaranteeing 100, a 0% disability rating to 1,000, to 100% disability rating, like without ever meeting with that veteran, without knowing anything about that veteran, just by the fact that they are, by the virtue of being a veteran, then I think that would be considered predatory behavior in my mind.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think to take it a step further for me, it's withholding the knowledge necessary to accomplish the task that they're looking for in return for compensation. In my mind, that's whenever I look at these ads, the literature, the terminology that's used. If you're withholding knowledge, especially whenever it comes to veterans, because it's such a sensitive topic, and I mean, dude, post 9/11 veterans were prevalent. We're everywhere now.
Yes.
The longest war in American history. We just got out of it. So there's veterans everywhere. If you're looking to profit off of that, I have a bit of a concern there. Now, that said, you made a really good point. You still have to operate. You still have to be operational as a company, which is why I think we're an open book, or I try to be as open as possible, and we've talked about it, how we conduct business, because that has been a question that's come up. If you have a for-profit arm and a non-for-profit, how are you keeping the lights on? And I tell
Yeah.
people honestly,
How do you
but I
reconcile
think
that?
yeah, I think that's the part that gets lost in translation a lot with the for-profit VSOs is I don't know how they're operating, but if you look at public records, I can see that your VP or president is making high six-figure salary. I have a concern there. Like, to me, something's not adding up. Um, Anyway, I could talk about that for hours, but I do think, we as veterans, we have to be guarded. You have to ask the question whenever you go and meet with a VSO, because I'm listening to you talk, Chase, and the only thing that I just had one question: how do I avoid that? How do I avoid these?
Well, you asked
predatory
directly,
VSOs?
right? You asked directly. Are you funded by grant? How are you funded? And I think there's nothing wrong with interviewing somebody who's going to give you assistance, asking them how they're funded, right? And that could give you a lot of information right there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And a good point. We said the same thing about whenever you're choosing what college to go to. You interview those institutions and those universities. You need to do the same thing because at the end of the day, you're in control. You're in control. They're there to serve you. And so if they're not comfortable answering that question, how are you funded? How are you able to do this? And if you don't like their answer, walk away.
Right.
Or if they don't want to answer, I would encourage you to
walk away. If they tell you they didn't know, that should raise some flags.
Yep.
Take the Purple Heart Association, right? I mean, they are very clear about how they're funded, right?
They are.
The Legion is one of the best, open book, kind of places that I could think of.
Yep.
That has embedded VSOs. Does that make sense?
Yeah. DFW, or I'm sorry, not DFW.
Not but the VFW.
VFW. They're the same way. All
They're
that
the exact
information
same way.
is published on their website, right? They show you line item by line item how money is utilized and dispersed inside of the organization. That's important information for you to know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Robbo, I think this thing has just come to a natural end here. I mean, we could heat on this all day and give you different examples. If this is a conversation that you guys want to talk, want to continue talking about, DEStalkers, and you want to know more about how to best guard your veteran, or you as a veteran guard yourself against predatory behavior when you're looking for VSOs, reach out to DES. We are 100% free to you. We can tell you how we make our money. We can show you how we make our money, but it's definitely not off of how, the counseling services that we give you as a veteran. So absolutely reach out to us. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Rob, appreciate you being here with us today, man. That's a deep conversation. I appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah, brother. This is a good topic, and I want to plug one more thing. If the veterans that are listening, or even non-veterans that are listening, if y'all want to have a conversation about this, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's have a live session on
Absolutely.
Facebook, YouTube, jump in here on Riverside, and we can share your thoughts, because Chase and I can talk about this stuff all day long. But at some point, other veterans have to chime in. Other spouses have to chime in. I come at it from a unique perspective. My wife was in the Army as well, so I'm both a veteran and the spouse of a veteran. And so, I look at it through a different lens, and I want to hear more from spouses. I want to hear more from veterans. And I think your voice needs to be heard as well. So drop it in the comments if you want to have a live session.
All right, guys. Well, from us here at DES, we appreciate you. Reach out to us, get on our social, drop a comment, like, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.